Welcome to my shop. My name is Guy, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Creality K1 printer. Let's take a closer look at this machine and see exactly what it offers in the way of specifications. Obviously, it's a fully enclosed printer. It's got acrylic or polycarbonate pieces that go all the way around. It's a nice smoky color I like. And on the inside, this does have a light, which is on right now to help illuminate the inside. It's a 220 by 220 by 250 build volume on it, which is plenty for most printing that you need done. It also has a full color touchscreen on the front, and we'll take a closer look at that in a second. Now the top on this does come off really easy, and that's to let some heat escape in case you want to print something like PLA filament in here. It won't get too hot inside. Now on the inside here is obviously the hot end. It is a direct drive extruder. This is your reverse Bowden. This is the chain link. This goes back to the motherboard. I believe it has a CAN bus in here. So there's just 4 wires going to the tool head. It does have a hot end fan for the parts cooling. It uses a fan on the side. Let's see if I can get it in the shot here, which is right here. And that blows a really nice stream of air across the bed, and it really helps quite a bit during printing. Now, as I mentioned before, this is running Clipper, so this is also a Core XY machine, meaning it's got 2 motors, A and B motors, and that moves the tool head this way, and then it has a Z motor to move the bed up and down. So this is stationary while the bed goes up and down for the Z height. Now this machine is running Clipper, and this is a modified version of Clipper screen. What you've got here on the front, you have a button to turn the light on and off. When the machine is going, you can turn the fan on. There's a side fan. On the front, it's showing the temperature right now. One color is the bed, and the other color is the hot end. Now, right now, I'm in home. If I click this, it gives me a couple different options, showing the temperature, the chamber, the bed, and the hot end. I've also got things where I can do things like home, the X, Y, and Z, and after that's done, you can move the gantry around. Right here allows you to set the temperature of the extruder, and you also can extrude or retract, also load and unload filament, which is really nice. This little folder icon here gets you into the different prints that you have stored in the machine. This gear icon gets you into the different settings for mostly the display and some of the machine settings. Overall, I find the screen really, really nice. It's got all the features you really want on it, right on the front of the screen. Most of the stuff also isn't buried under 10 different layers of things, and it's all well laid out and works really well. I've got the front fan cowling off, and just a couple screws on each side takes it off. These are the breakout boards or the CAN bus boards. Everything in the tool head is hooked up into these. Let's flip it around and take a look at the other side. Now on the other side over here, there's 2 fittings, 2 connectors. There's one here and one here that are not being used. Now I'm assuming that one of those is for the upcoming LiDAR whenever that does decide to drop. Again, I'm assuming that's what it is. Also hanging here on the right side of the cabinet is this, and it's definitely marked CAM on the tape, so that's for the upcoming camera. Again, hopefully it will come out soon. I've got the machine on its side. I'm looking at electronics underneath. It's pretty standard. I've got a 350 watt power supply. This is probably what's making a lot of noise. I'll more than likely replace that. And there's also a fan down here. Again, these 2 are making the bulk of the noise in the machine. It's just idle these are going. We've also got a motherboard here. This is a Z motor, and this is the Z belt. There's 3 lead screws for the belt for the Z axis. Let's take a closer look at the motherboard. Now, it's a pretty standard motherboard. You've got all the regular connectors on it. This is a CAN bus wire down here, I believe, that goes to the tool head. The only thing that's really proprietary on it is this wire right here, which goes to the display. Other than that, It's a pretty standard board. It could be replaced, I guess, if you needed to, but you'd lose the display right here. Now, I need to do this because this machine, I believe anyways, was built for the express purpose of going up against this machine, which is the Bambu Labs P1P. Let's take a closer look at these, and there are some feature differences, but there's a lot of things that are very similar. First of all, the build volume on this is a little bit larger at 256 by 256 instead of 250, 250, or 220, 220, and 250. Speed-wise, they're both really, really close. They're going to average around 250 millimeters a second. What little difference there is pretty negligible. The biggest difference you can see right away is there is no enclosure that's included with this. Now, very recently, Bambu Labs just lowered the price of this machine to $5.99. It was $6.99, but when this came out at $5.99, I think it kind of rattled their cage a little bit, and they lowered this to $5.99. I don't know that to be true. Again, that's just my impressions of it. You've also got the touch screen on here, which is really, really nice. This one has this really old school LED display on it. It works, but not really well, I don't think anyways, but it works well enough. You really control this through the software and through the app on your cell phone, which I can't get to work. I've tried multiple times. I had a problem with the motherboard. I had to change it out, and I've never been able to bind this again. I've gone round and round with tech support, still no love. But as far as that goes, I think controlling this is a little bit easier. This does have a web interface. It's not a full type interface like mainsail or fluid that you have with most clipper machines, but it's still serviceable. You can still start and stop prints. You can transfer files to it. You can home bed. You can move the bed. You can set the temperature, all those things right from the screen. So that's nice. Now, as far as the Creality goes, I have heard some negative reviews about it. You know, I guess everybody has an opinion. Some of the things I've heard, number one, is the Creality app, the Creality Cloud app, is really awful. And to be honest with you, I've never even tried it because I don't really need it, I guess. So there you go. You don't have to use it. It's not necessary to run the machine. You can still open up the web interface on your phone and do it that way if you want. You can't slice files and download and do some of these other things. But then again, you don't really have to deal with all the clutter and everything that's on the app. Another thing that I've heard quite a bit about this machine is that it has extrusion problems because of this reverse Bowden going back up through the cable chain here. And I am going to address that in a little bit. I haven't had those problems, nor have I had any problems with the extruder just letting loose of the filament in here. Again, no problems like that at all. I'm very happy with this machine. I'm going to talk about, show you some of the prints, and we'll talk about some of the things I like and don't like a little bit later. Now, I had mentioned before that this machine prints on average about 250 millimeters per second. They claim it does up to 600 millimeters a second, and that is true. It does come with a pre-sliced file for 600 millimeters a second. However, you really have to use their Hyper Series Creality filament. Now, Creality did send me this filament, and they sent me the printer too, I will say that. But to get that 600 millimeters a second, you do have to use their filament. I don't know what it is, but I think this just melts a little bit easier and flows a little bit more, becomes more viscous when it's at temperature. So you have to use this. Now, if you're going to be printing at the regular speeds, which is around 250, like I said, which is still really super fast, you want to use regular filament. And the slicer that this comes with, I find works fairly well. It's got some quirks to it. It's not perfect, but then again, nothing is. And it slices the stuff, and it works really well. And I'm going to show you some of the prints that I've done with it. Now, all these prints were printed with the Creality Hyper PLA, and this is the volumetric flow test that a lot of people have seen. This is the file that prints at 600 millimeters a second. This is printed in vase mode. All the layer lines are really nice. There's really not falling apart at all. Did a really good job with this. Now this is a benchy that came pre-sliced. Again, I printed this with their Hyper PLA, and this printed in about 16 minutes, I believe, which is super, super fast. And the quality of this is really good too. The layer lines are real nice and tight. The front of the boat here doesn't have any garbage on it. The overhangs worked really, really well. I mean, this is a really good benchy, especially for 16 minutes. This is a little articulated cat it came with. Again, still the same as the other ones here. It printed very, very well. And then I also printed out a Voron cube, and the dimensions on it are really, really accurate. It's, again, really, really tight layer lines. The top is nice and smooth. Did a really good job. I was very, very happy with it. Then I changed to regular PLA, and let me show you what happened there. So here's a little milk crate that I wanted to print, and this is the first attempt at it. Now if you look on here, there's some massive under extrusion on this, and it's really brittle. You can hear it popping a little bit. It's separating a little bit right there. If you can see that right there and right there, where it's delaminating. I stopped this print because I didn't want to use up filament, for I knew it was going to be a bad print. Again, just horribly under extruded. This is Overture PLA, and nothing fancy, but nothing garbage either. It's just standard PLA that a lot of people use. And again, a lot of under extrusions. This is using the stock settings in the Cura slicer. Now this is a second attempt after I did something. I want to talk about what I did in a minute, but all the under extrusion is gone. There's no lamination at the bottom. It's got a really nice finish on here. This came out darn near perfect, and no problems at all with the extraction on this. What I did was pretty simple. This is the nozzle it came with. This is a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, brass nozzle, and if you look at it, it kind of looks like a volcano hot end, but it's not. It's just a little bit shorter. This was my solution. Now this is a volcano hot end. This is plated brass. So, but this is one of the Bondtech CHT nozzles, which has this little three-way splitter in here. As the filament goes in, it gets heated, it splits up, and you have a larger melting zone, and you're multiplying that by 3 basically. When I put this one in there, all my problems went away. All the extraction problems went away anyways. This is a little bit longer than the regular nozzle that goes in there, but that's okay because this machine levels with a touch sensor, and it taps the nozzle down onto the bed, so you don't have to set Z height, and it also does the leveling that way. So you put one of these on there, run the calibration test, and again, all your problems going away. I got this for about $30, and I got it from kb3d.com, and I'll leave a link to it down in the description. This is a spool holder I printed out of that same Overture filament, and this came out really, really nice. The dimensions on it are really accurate because this spins very freely. This also had to be printed using supports, and this actually had supports going all the way underneath it down to the bed like this. And look how clean that is, how they came off of there. I was really impressed. Again, that was just using all the stock settings from their slicer, and used regular supports. They weren't organic or tree supports or anything like that, but they popped right off, and then a little skin peeled off of there, and there was absolutely no scarring at all. Again, very, very nice. This was kind of a torture test too in relationship to the stringing, and there is none. A little bit maybe right here. But for the most part, there's no stringing, there's no delamination on the bottom. It's super, super flat. It didn't come off the bed. This was a long print. This was, I believe, if I remember right, about an 8 or 9 hour print. And it came out really well. It would have been about 2 days on an under 3. So that just gives you an idea of the speed. Well, here's some of the other things I've printed out showing in the folder. This is kind of nice too because it gives you a little picture of it. I've got that same Overture PLA in here, and this is the Benchy that came pre-sliced from Creality right with the machine. Oh, hit the button. There we go. And it says it'll do it in 16 minutes. Now this was designed to be using their Hyper PLA. I'm going to try printing. It's the first time I've tried it. I'm going to try printing it with the Overture PLA that's in there and see how well it goes. Now I do have the calibration set on this, so it will go through the auto leveling and also the input shaping. So let's hit print. Oh, there it goes. So when you start up a print, it goes through this whole process just like the Bambu does, where it's going to do all the points on the bed and also do a really quick input shaping for the calibration. And it takes about 5 minutes for it to start. Not a big deal, but you know, I can hold on for 5 minutes while this is doing it. The other thing is this machine, it is loud. I mean, really loud. And most of it is this fan here on the side. There is some fan noise coming from the power supply down below. I'm probably going to change that to a Noctua and put a buck converter in there to limit the voltage on it. But it's really this fan, and I will look at replacing that fan with something at some point in time. So now it's going through its calibration process. I really don't know if it does the input shaping part, but it definitely levels all the corners of the bed, does a mesh med level, and also checks the Z height. To make sure you get that perfect first layer. Speaking of perfect first layer, I do have a podcast called The Perfect First Layer that I do with my friends Nathan from Nathan Builds Robots and JJ Shankles here on YouTube. So you need to check it out, and I will leave a link in the description down below. Now back to the printing. There it goes. There's this purge line. It's going to lay down the first layer. We'll see how that does. The camera here, and we're going to wait for that fan to kick on, and it is loud. There goes the fan. I don't know if you can hear it. I got the microphone in my shirt here. Let me bring the fan a little bit closer. It's loud. Now it is loud, but it's very fast too. I can put up with a little bit of noise because of the speed. Now this machine for me is going to live out in my garage, so I'm not going to have it in my office, so the noise is not really a concern to me. So this print, like it said on the screen, only took 16 minutes. I do want to talk about this bed here real quick. This is not a PEI bed, but it is a flex plate. I don't know what kind of material it is, but they say you're supposed to use glue stick on it. I've never used glue stick on it. It heats to about 50 degrees for PLA, and I found that the stuff pops off pretty easy. Without any glue, and had real good luck with it. Let's take a little closer look at this Benchy. Well, here's the Benchy. This little bit on here at the bottom is a brim that it automatically put on there. And get that off with the deburr tool. But really good layer lines. Cooling worked well. There's overhangs here. Everything did a really good job. It's not perfect, but this is pretty darn good for a 16-minute Benchy. No complaints at all. And again, this is their pre-sliced model. It was supposed to go at 600 millimeters a second, which probably was around 5. I really don't know what the speed was on this one, but all I know is 16 minutes for this Benchy, this quality, is really, really good. So let's talk about the things I like and the things I like not so much. This is a really good machine. It's super fast. The price at $5.99 for a fully enclosed Core XY machine that actually prints well, to me, is a very good deal. Once I changed out the nozzle to the Bondtech CHT, I had zero problems. I haven't had any problems with the bed being too sticky or not sticky enough. I printed ABS, TPU, PLA, PETG on this. Again, all with the stock settings that's in the Creality slicer, and I haven't had any issues with it. I like the touchscreen on the front of it. I think the build volume is fine. Being able to wirelessly send the files to the printer through the slicer is a really nice feature, and then using the web interface, you just log into the IP address on your web browser, and I can start the print right from there and monitor it from there. No camera yet, they're coming. But again, there's really not much to not like on this machine. It is a good machine. Some of the things I don't like about it, it's requiring constant updates, and I guess that's a good thing because Creality is on top of all the stuff they're hearing from the community right now. But it does have a few little things here and there. I really don't have any problems with this machine. I really like it. I think if I had a choice between this machine and the Bambu P1P, I would pick this machine, and that's in all honesty. I get a machine that's just as fast, don't care about the speed. The app really doesn't mean anything to me, but the slicer works well. It's not perfect, but it works well. But I get fully enclosed. It's very inexpensive. At $5.99, it's a great price point. For 30 bucks, putting the CHT nozzle on there worked wonders. So with all that said, again, I'm going to recommend this machine. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the section down below. And thanks so much for watching.